Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Dear God, why are they doing that thing? Please help me understand, for the love of God, why? We're participating in something that's incredibly unsettling. I originally saw it on Facebook and I thought that it was just a trend, but as I started digging into it, I realized we've been doing it for hundreds of years. We're just changing the way we do it as technology advances. What is the thing? I thought you'd never ask. We're taking photos with dead people on purpose. We started doing this pretty much the moment photography was invented. This was the first photo ever taken, by the way, and it took like 8 hours of exposure to capture it. And ever since then, we were just like obsessed with it because it was the best way to capture people or places or things that we didn't want to forget. The thing about photos though is they only capture like a tidbit of the moment. A tidbit. Tidbit. Tid comes from fond or tender. Tender bits. The thing about photos though is they only capture like a brief moment in time. So unless you were there when the photo was taken, you would have no idea that this person is dead. And also this person. Dead. Super dead. All of the people in this photo are alive though. All of the people. During the 19th century, photography wasn't like super expensive or like uncommon or anything, but if you died young, there's a chance that there was no photos of you. So the only way that people could remember you was in here. At first, they started photographing their deceased loved ones laying down, you know, like dead people do. But then they started thinking creatively. I use my hair to express myself.
That sounds really boring.
I use my hair to express myself. Following the death of a loved one, they would clean, dress, and prop the deceased up to make them look as natural as possible. Sometimes they would go as far as to paint the eyes open on the photo after it was taken. The hope was that as time passed, the circumstances of how the photo was taken would fade away, and the family would just have a lovely photo together. Photos from this era usually took about 45 seconds to capture. Even for adults, staying perfectly still is kind of tough. So when you see photos like this, that some of the figures are a little blurry and others are crystal clear, might be because they're... I discovered something while looking up research for this video that I think is worth noting. There's a common myth that dead people would get propped up using these things called posing stands. Posing stands were a very real thing that photographers would use to help their subjects stay perfectly still during the long exposures, but it's incredibly unlikely that they use them for post-mortem photography. There's a lot of pictures that claim this to be the case, but it was more likely that they just were weird as fuck looking and not actually dead. And of course, a tale as old as time. This little goofball was known as William H. Mumler, also known as the man who captured the ghost of Lincoln. He claimed to have caught a ghostly figure in one of his photos. He then went on to be a full-time spirit photographer, and he charged people money to capture them with the spirits of their deceased loved ones. This was during the Civil War, so there was a lot of people dying. Another photographer named J.W. Black showed up at his studio, sat for a photo, and then watched every step of the process to try to debunk it. But to his surprise, the ghostly apparition of his father showed up, and he was like, well. One time, he photographed a woman, and the spirit of her dead brother showed up. But then he also showed up home from the war, alive. But before Billy decided to call it a day on spirit photography, he decided to go out with a bang, and he photographed the lady herself, Mary Todd Lincoln. You know, from Abraham Lincoln. You know, the guy from the penny. Well, surely in the modern age of technology, with cameras in our pockets at all times, we would have moved on from such practices, right? Nope. 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 Nowadays, we take photos for everything: weddings, graduations, parties, special moments that we want to remember and share. And it's normal to feel sad when people aren't alive to share these moments with us. I can understand the concept of photoshopping somebody into a memory that they weren't alive to experience. I mean, 5, 10, 20 years, who's going to remember that great-grandma wasn't at your college graduation? Everybody's going to be too busy playing Among Us 7 on their iPhone 23s and waiting for Elder Scrolls 6 to come out. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the people that Photoshop their deceased loved ones in, turn the opacity down, add an ethereal glow, and make Grandma Ethel look like she's about to get sucked up by Dan Aykroyd. Who you gonna call? My personal favorite is when they Photoshop the dearly departed, but they don't really merge everybody together. So they look like they are trying to be part of the photo, but everybody is like, you know him? Does anybody here know this guy? Or maybe they don't know how to naturally merge them into the photo, so they just give them their own zip code. Oh, cool. Uncle Dave showed up. Where the f are your legs? Sometimes they just say f it and they throw them up in the corner like a watermark, or the Teletubby baby son, who's 19, by the way. 19 years old. That's a full human who can vote and buy cigarettes, right? How old do you have to be to buy cigarettes? How old to buy cigarettes? 21. Okay, well, and again, I understand the sentiment of wanting a loved one in your special moment, but if somebody photoshopped Uncle Jay into my wedding photos in a Tommy Bahama shirt that he wore on a trip to Tahiti in 2009, kind of sick. I hope that everybody wears Tommy Bahama shirts. Why wouldn't everybody wear a Tommy Bahama shirt to a wedding? Can I wear a Tommy Bahama shirt to my wedding? What's Tommy Bahama doing right now? I bet he's in the Bahamas. Tommy Bahama's not a real person. I looked it up and now I'm real sad. I thought that Tommy was a real cool guy. Turns out it's just a brand for hip dads. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, hey, you're being a real piece of shit right now. Well, unfortunately, we return to the reoccurring theme of here we see a grieving mother near a grave, accompanied by a ghostly figure of what we can probably assume is her daughter. These are the photos of Jeannie Diddy, and the ghostly apparition that you see near her is her 2-year-old daughter, Macy. Shortly after the sudden death of Macy, Jeannie hired a photographer that specialized in ghost photography. But after further investigation, it was discovered that Jeannie was the one that took the life of Macy, and she was simply using these photos to sway the court that she was a grieving mother. I started digging into Fiverr, and unlike the photographer that Jeannie used, who took the photos and manipulated them afterwards, the Fiverr artists just do the Photoshop part. And the photos are photos. Grandpa, come on down from your vape cloud and play Among Us with us on the iPad at the beach. Stacy loved selfies, so to honor her memory, we photoshopped her into a selfie. I understand that mourning is a process that everybody deals with differently, so at the end of the day, trying to include somebody into a memory that they weren't alive to experience, maybe it's a really beautiful thing. So, in honor of including people into memories that I wish that they were there for, I hired artists to Photoshop my friend Jordan into memories that I think he would have loved. He's alive, by the way. Anyways, bye. Thanks for watching.